recently received a few questions about when to harvest potatoes, and of course there's three different kinds. You've got your first earlies, you've got your second earlies, and then you've got your main crop, and they're all planted at different times, so they're harvested at different times as well. So if we start with things like a first early, they usually take about 10 to 12 weeks before they're ready to harvest, and sometimes, not all varieties, they'll get flowers on, and when those flowers drop, it's time to harvest your plants. And if you planted them in containers especially, you can have a little rummage in there, and if you find potatoes of first earlies about the size of an egg, that's the time when you harvest. Then you've got your second earlies as well, things like your Charlotte. Those potatoes grow slightly bigger, and again you might see flowers on those plants, but then again you might not. But as a general rule, 15 to 17 weeks from planting is when they'll be ready to harvest, and that will usually be July through August. And then you've got your main crop varieties, the ones that take the longest to grow, because you're getting much bigger potatoes. You would normally sow those March to May, and an harvest time on those would be late August through till the end of October. But these are slightly different when you harvest them, because you wait until the entire plant has died back. All the top foliage has gone yellow and it's gone over. When that happens, what you want to do is cut all that top foliage away, but leave the potatoes in ground for about a week or so, because that's going to harden the skin, and therefore they'll store a lot better. Even if it's quite late in the year, they can take a light frost, not a hard frost though. So especially if they're in containers, you can just move them around somewhere and then just leave them. And you don't want to harvest potatoes when it's wet. So if you can cover them over somehow, especially if they're in a container, then that's great, because you can dry that soil out. And then when you do harvest these potatoes, the skin is going to be a lot harder and they'll store for a lot longer. Also, while your plants are actually growing, make sure with main crops you earth those potatoes up, because first earlies and second earlies, they grow outwards when they produce tubers, but on main crop the potatoes grow upward. So as that plant gets higher, tubers go out and you need to bury those, and then again and bury, and it will form layers of potatoes below that plant. If you don't bury them and they get sunlight on them, they turn green and they're no good. I'll show you an example of ones that I've got. So this is a main crop variety, and if you look inside you can see there's a bit of a gap from the soil to the top. So you want to keep filling this container till it's to the top. You'll get more potatoes by doing that. So you basically just want to take some compost and carefully put it around your plants, like that, taking care not to damage those stems. And do it really loosely, because potatoes grow better in loose soil. And just keep going around until you've filled it to the top. And that's basically all you need to do as this plant's growing until the container's full. So basically what that's going to do now is trigger this plant into sending out more tubers, because the stem's been buried further. Those tubers obviously become potatoes, so you'll get a better harvest by doing this. And of course the exact same applies to any that you've got in raised beds. Make sure you check regular fruit season. Just have a look underneath. Make sure none are growing on top of your soil, and if they are, you need to bury them so they don't turn green. And these little flowers that grow on top, once they're pollinated, they turn into little cherry tomato looking fruits. I've seen it in past quite a few times, maybe you haven't, but I'll explain exactly what they are. So you just saw those flowers growing on tops of those potato plants. Later in season, there's also a chance that those flowers could become pollinated, and if they do, they'll start to turn into what look like little cherry tomatoes. But you need to get rid of those when you see them. And the reason they look like cherry tomatoes is basically tomatoes and potatoes are from the same family, which is the nightshade family, as are your pepper plants. But when these little cherry tomato looking fruits start to grow, get rid of them because they're poisonous. And they're particularly poisonous to animals and small children because they contain high amounts of solanine. So if you see them, pick them off, throw them away, because what that little fruit is doing is it's growing seeds inside to produce more potatoes. But we never use them because to grow a potato from a seed actually takes years, and it's only used by big commercial companies that are trying to reproduce hybrid versions of potatoes that are more resilient to diseases like blight, or to try and make a new type of potato. But it's not feasible for us to do that. That's why we buy seed potatoes. So if you ever do see those growing on your potato plants, don't panic. They're not affecting your potato plant at all, but they do contain that poison. So as soon as you see them, pick them off, throw them away. Because also, while that is trying to grow that little fruit, it's taking energy from the tubers at the same time. So I hope you found this video informative and it helps you fruit growing season. If you want to see more, then please just hit that subscribe button and press that notifications bell, and we'll see you on next update. You all take care. Thank you.